Last time we talked about MechAssault, the game that quietly launched Xbox Live while nobody was paying attention. But Xbox Live was still an experiment, a curiosity, a thing you told your friends about and they shrugged. Then one game came along and made Xbox Live the reason to own a console. One game that broke every sales record in entertainment history, not just gaming, all of entertainment. Bigger than Spider-Man 2, bigger than Shrek 2, bigger than anything Hollywood had ever put out in 24 hours. But there's the thing nobody talks about. The game that changed everything, it almost didn't get made. And the story of how it came together might be the most chaotic, painful, and genuinely insane development story in gaming history. This is the story of Halo 2. So let's set the stage. It's 2002, Halo Combat Evolved has sold over 5 million copies. It single-handedly justified the existence of the Xbox. Without Halo, the original Xbox is probably a footnote, Microsoft's weird, expensive experiment that didn't pan out. But Halo worked, and now Microsoft needs a sequel. Not once, needs. Xbox General Manager Jay Allard confirms at E3 2002 that Halo 2 is in production, targeting a holiday 2003 release. That's a roughly 18-month turnaround for a sequel to one of the biggest games ever made. And Bungie, they're ambitious. They don't just want to add a few new guns and call it a day. Designer Jamie Griesemer later said the team tripled everything: new game engine, new physics engine, a prototype stencil shadow system that would make the game look like nothing else on the Xbox. Online multiplayer. Real, proper online multiplayer through Xbox Live. But there's a problem. Actually, there's a lot of problems. Jason Jones, Bungie's co-founder and the creative force behind Halo, is burned out. He poured everything into Combat Evolved, and now he's supposed to do it again, bigger and less time? Jones starts pulling away from the project, eventually leaving to work on a separate Bungie project codenamed Phoenix. The other co-founder, Alex Seropian, leaves the company entirely in 2002, and suddenly the political dynamics inside Bungie shift. There's nobody mediating tensions anymore. And here's where it gets really messy. Artist Robert McLeese put it perfectly. Bungie never had good managers. They had creatives that were forced into managerial roles while still remaining in their creative roles, basically working two jobs. This kind of worked when there were 12 of us. It worked less well when there were 30 of us. It collapsed when there were 60 of us. So you've got a team that's more than tripled in size, lost its two founders, has no clear management structure, and is trying to build the most ambitious Xbox game ever made. What could go wrong? So what do you do when your creative lead checks out? Your management structure collapses and you've already promised the world something incredible. Well, you show them something incredible, whether it's real or not. E3 2003. Bungie takes the stage and shows an 8-minute gameplay demo set in a place called Earth City, New Mombasa, under Covenant invasion. And it is stunning. The stencil shadow lighting is unlike anything anyone has seen on a console. There's a boarding mechanic where you can hijack vehicles. There are dual-wielding weapons. The environments are massive. The audience loses their minds. There's just one small problem. Most of it doesn't work. Not really. Not as a playable game. The demo was essentially a Potemkin village. A carefully orchestrated vertical slice built specifically for that stage. The stencil shadow system? Gorgeous, but it was eating the Xbox alive, performance-wise. Writer Joseph Staten later described the team's mentality. We ordered ourselves a giant sandwich, took a bite, but didn't realize exactly how big it was before we started in. The Earth City level, as shown at E3, never made it into the final game. The stencil shadow system was scrapped entirely. Multiple features had to be scaled back or cut. And here's the wild part. The actual E3 demo build leaked in December 2025, over 22 years later. People finally got to poke around in the files and see just how much of it was smoke and mirrors. 10 gigs of raw assets, internal dev tools, and a version of the game that bears only a passing resemblance to what shipped. But in that moment on that E3 stage, none of that mattered. Everyone believed. The hype was real, and now Bungie had to actually build the thing they just promised. The holiday 2003 deadline? Gone. Pushed to fall 2004, and even that felt impossible. Imagine showing the world a vision of something that doesn't exist yet. Something so good that millions of people pre-order based on an 8-minute lie. And now you've got about 10 months to make it real. What does that do to a team? The title of this section isn't mine. It comes from an incredible deep dive on the making of Halo 2, and I think it's the most perfect description of what happened at Bungie between late 2003 and November 2004. Because here's the reality. After E3, Bungie essentially had to start over. The ambitious engine they built, too unstable, the stencil shadow system, cut, the sprawling campaign they'd envisioned, way too big. Writer Joseph Staten recalls that every department thought they were running the show, and nobody was on the same page about what the game actually was. Engineering boss Luke Timmons later said the 18 months leading up to the release were brutal and nearly destroyed the studio, and Robert McLeese described the toll directly. Halo 2 really took a toll on me. This wasn't the kind of crunch you hear about where people work some extra weekends. This was months of 7-day work weeks, people sleeping at the office, marriages strained. Some people left the gaming industry entirely after Halo 2 shipped and never came back. And the campaign had to be cut in half, literally. The original plan for Halo 2's story would have included the battle for Earth and the conclusion of the war. Instead, the game ends on a cliffhanger. Master Chief telling Admiral Hood,
"Sir, finishing this fight."
And then credits. What was supposed to be one complete game became two, Halo 2 and Halo 3. But here's what makes this story so fascinating. The multiplayer didn't get cut. If anything, it got better. And that decision, whether intentional or born from desperation, changed gaming forever. But here's what's wild. The thing that nearly broke Bungie might be the single most important innovation in online gaming history. And it all connects back to that little experiment we talked about in the last video. Remember Mech Assault? Xbox Live's launch title? The thing that proved console gamers would play online? Well, Halo 2 took that proof of concept and built an empire on top of it. See, before Halo 2, playing a game online on console meant manually searching for lobbies, picking servers, hoping enough people were in the room, and dealing with whatever chaos you found. PC gamers were used to this. Console gamers? Not so much. Most people's experience with multiplayer was sitting on the couch next to their friends with split screen. Halo 2 introduced something that seems so obvious now that it's hard to imagine it not existing. Matchmaking. Automated, skill-based matchmaking. You didn't pick a server, you didn't browse lobbies, you picked the type of game you wanted to play, hit a button, and the system found you opponents at your skill level. It created playlists, rotating game types and maps that kept a steady flow of matches going at all times. This seems like nothing now. Every online game does this. But in 2004, this was revolutionary. Halo 2 essentially invented the matchmaking infrastructure that every modern online game is built on. Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex Legends, Valorant. All of them use systems that trace their DNA directly back to what Bungie built in for Halo 2. And then there was the marketing. Oh man, the marketing. Have you ever heard of I Love Bees? Because this is one of the most ambitious and genuinely insane marketing campaigns in entertainment history. Months before Halo 2's launch, a URL flashed at the end of a Halo 2 trailer, ilovebees.com. The site appeared to be a hacked beekeeping website covered in corrupted data and random characters. Over 250,000 people visit it on day one, over 3 million over the following months. It was an alternate reality game, an ARG, created by 42 Entertainment. Players around the world had to solve real-world puzzles, decipher encrypted files, and, I'm not making this up, answer ringing payphones at specific GPS coordinates at specific times. One player in Florida stayed by a payphone during Hurricane Francis to answer a call. That's how invested people were. This is the level of cultural anticipation Halo 2 had built. Before the game even launched, it had become a phenomenon. So what happens when you pour all of that pain, all of that crunch, all of that mad genius into a single launch night? What does the biggest entertainment event in history look like? November 9th, 2004. Midnight launches across the country. Lines around the block at every GameStop, Best Buy, and Walmart. Some stores had been taking pre-orders for months. 1.5 million copies were pre-ordered before launch day. And then the numbers came in. 2.4 million units sold in the first 24 hours. $125 million in revenue in one day. That wasn't just a gaming record. That was the biggest 24-hour haul in all of entertainment. Bigger than any movie premiere, bigger than any album drop, bigger than any book launch. For a brief, shining moment, a video game about a guy in green armor shooting aliens was the most commercially successful piece of entertainment media ever released. And Xbox Live? Mexalt had proven people would subscribe. Halo 2 made them stay. The game became the most popular title on Xbox Live from the moment it launched, and held that position for nearly 2 years, until Gears of War came along on the Xbox 360. By 2006, over 2/3 of all Xbox Live users had played Halo 2 online. The game eventually sold over 8 million copies on the original Xbox alone, making it the best-selling game on the platform. Period. Nothing else came close. But for all its success, Halo 2 didn't get a perfect reception. Two things divided fans right down the middle. First, the Arbiter. Half the campaign had you playing as a Covenant elite instead of Master Chief. For some players, this was brilliant. It widened the story, gave the Covenant depth, introduced one of the franchise's best characters. For others, they wanted to be Master Chief. Period. They didn't buy an Xbox to play as the alien bad guy. And second, that ending.
Sir, finishing this fight.
Credits. That's it. The game just stops. The campaign was clearly cut short because Bungie ran out of time. What was supposed to be the conclusion of the Human Covenant War became a cliffhanger that wouldn't be resolved for 3 more years. Players were furious. Reviews docked points, message boards burned. But here's the thing. Time has been incredibly kind to Halo 2. The Arbiter is now widely considered one of the best characters in the franchise. The cliffhanger, while frustrating in the moment, made Halo 3 feel absolutely essential. And the multiplayer was so good, so foundational, that people literally refused to stop playing. And I mean that literally. When Microsoft shut down the original Xbox Live servers on April 15th, 2010, 6 years after launch, a group of Halo 2 players refused to log off. They kept their Xboxes running, staying in matches, keeping these servers alive through sheer stubbornness. The last player didn't disconnect until May 10th, 2010, nearly a month after the servers were supposed to die. That's not just loyalty, that's love. And here's the irony of it all. Halo 2 nearly destroyed Bungie. The crunch was inhuman. People left, and marriages suffered. Some developers never made another game. Robert McLeese took a sabbatical. The studio was fundamentally changed by the experience. But Halo 2 is also the reason Bungie survived long enough to eventually break away from Microsoft, go independent, and create Destiny. The cathedral they built from a hurricane became the foundation of everything that came after. MechAssault opened the door, Halo 2 kicked it off its hinges, and the original Xbox? It was never just a console. It was a promise that gaming could be something more, something connected, something bigger than the box sitting under your TV. We're only getting started. If you haven't seen the MechAssault video that started this series, I'll link it right here. And if you want to see where this story goes next, you know what to do. I'm Jared. Thanks for watching.